just watched the video.
Okay. So, but were you able to complete lessons 3?
Yeah, I watched it. So towards the end, it's saying there's assignment.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
that's, yeah. Uh,
So, do you have any question from completing lesson 3?
uh, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, not really. I think everything was clear.
Okay. Yeah, but I think Michelle has brought up some really great question that it will be good for us all to clarify on. It may help your own understanding or enhance your own understanding if you really understood it, or maybe just refresh it if you clearly get it already. And then once we are done, we'll go ahead to run through some of the questions. All right, regarding, so Michelle's first point was sprint planning time box. So Michelle was asking, so if a 1 month sprint, um, so if the time box for a 1 month sprint is 8 hours, I mean for sprint planning events, what would be the time box for a shorter sprint? Michelle, was that your question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So come to think of it, just do the math. If 1 month, if a sprint planning that is 1 month will take 8 hours, if you divide the 1 month by 2, if you have 2 week sprints, then you are estimating approximately 4 hours for your sprint planning.
Okay. I wanted to know how you go about it. That if it's for 4 hours, is it that it will be 30 minutes a day, or you brainstorm
No.
for 4 hours stretch? Something like that.
The entire 4 hours you'll be there to do that planning. You can choose to take breaks. I mean, there is no strict rule around it. Whatever works for you people.
Okay.
But the goal is that you have to get a plan ready before you can even start that.
Before you start. Okay.
Yes. So you can choose to do 30 minutes and have a 5 minutes break, do another 30 minutes and have a 5, whatever works for you though. But trust me, in reality, what happens on the ground, it's hardly ever true that team will go sit for 4 hours to be doing planning.
Okay.
It may happen. If that's happening, then that's a problem instead. It means that you're doing a terrible job with backlog refinement. Or your PO is doing a terrible job with keeping the product backlog healthy. That's why you would have to stay for 4 hours to do planning. If you're doing a good job with backlog refinement, a 2-week sprint, if it's too much, you take max about 1 hour, 30 minutes to do the planning. Because in reality, during that planning, again, if you are doing a good job with backlog refinement, you're just connecting to balance things up. So I need you to see backlog refinement as pre-planning meeting, where you've done the most work. And then you come now on the day of the planning just to reaffirm that, okay, we think we are comfortable with these. And then maybe if anything have changed from, like that is from the time you did your refinement to the day of the sprint planning, maybe customers have asked for something else. And then maybe the PO will be communicating that at that time, and then you can quickly do that, the addition. I mean, just balance things up and then commit that, okay, we are agree that this is what we are committing to. We think that we can achieve this, and then you kick off your sprints.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's how it works. All right, and then your question regarding potential increment and increment. What's the difference? How does this work? Does this even make sense? What is potential increment, potential shippable increment? So, and then I just need you all to understand that now it's no longer potential shippable increment. According to the latest version of the Scrum Guide, the 2020 version, for a potential increment to become an increment, it has to be valuable, shippable, usable. So before you'd only hear about potential shippable increment, but now it is potential shippable, usable, valuable increment. So as you complete the rest of your lessons, you will hear that a lot. You'll be tired of hearing that because it's just a song that I keep singing because that's how important it is. Based that understanding, who can help us clarify the difference between a potential increment and an increment, and where does it fall in relation to sprint review events?
Sure.
You want to try, James?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you ask the question again?
Okay, so what's your understanding between potential increments? That's when I mention potential, just consider it as potential, shippable, usable, valuable increment. What's the difference between a potential increment and an increment? And where do they fall as far as sprint review is concerned? How do they come into play? Let me put it that way.
Okay. So so I'm gonna kind of stretch the answer a little bit, so just hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have, in my own understanding, so you have a increment maximum and increment minimum. I know, just hear me out, right?
Okay, we're hearing.
Okay, so during every sprint, you have an increment. Okay, now the increment from sprint 1 flows into sprint 2. The increment from sprint 2 flows into sprint 3 until you come up to the final sprint, which is the end of that product production cycle. Okay, now that final increment is what I would consider increment maximum, because it includes all the small increment from sprint 1 all the way to the end of that, to let's say 10 sprint, to the end of sprint 10. Now that increment maximum will be the same as a feature. So the feature that was being worked on for that cycle is what you will get at the end of that increment at the last sprint. That's one. Now, how does that fit into the whole product review? Sprint review. Well, so sprint review is, well, not also, but is somewhat synonymous with demo as well. There is a demo that should occur, or that typically occur during sprint review, right? So that increment, that big increment that was done at the end of the last sprint, gets demoed to the stakeholders and everyone who is involved. Well, yeah, everybody, the stakeholder, the team demos it to the stakeholder and customers and everyone who is, who has a hand in it, right? So that feature or maximum increment that was produced is obviously has to meet the definition of done. It has to hit all the milestones, right? To be, now that particular feature or increment must be obviously shippable, valuable, usable, and like we said, it may or may not be pushed forward, but it has to meet all those criteria and be ready to, and be ready for use or custom or application, if you will.
All right.
That's
a great try, James.
Okay.
Great try. Thank you. So who else has anything to add? What's your understanding, or what's your thought process around this?
I'll try. My understanding is an increment is a successful sprint. So the sprint is complete in terms of the sprint backlog. All of the tasks are, I guess, defined as done, versus a potential increment. Not necessarily all of the tasks in the sprint backlog are considered done by the product owner.
Okay. You got this. The first thing you said is exactly what an increment is. So an increment is the potential increment that has been verified and reviewed and accepted by the stakeholders or the customers to meet the definition of done. So if they say meets the definition of done, it means that it is shippable, valuable, and usable, which means that, okay, the business can choose to ship it that same day after it's been reviewed. That's the meaning of shippable. That is, or you want to call it release. They can choose to release it or call it deploy, whatever term you choose to use. All of them means the same thing. And if, let's assume that so they can choose to push it to the customers or they can choose to put it on the shelf. That's their call. Our own is to make sure that it is shippable. That means we have to put it in a state that meets the definition of done. So, and then if they choose to ship it, the customers should be able to derive value from it, and they should be able to use it. That's what an increment. That's what a done increment is. Now, what is a potential increment? A potential increment is what you have achieved at the end of the sprint. So, according to the team, it is an increment because you think that you've done it right. And then now you go for your sprint review. Why are you going for the sprint review? Because you want the customers to review what you think you've achieved and then confirm that, okay, yes, it meets the definition of done. We are satisfied with this. So it passed the test. So this is great, and they accept it. So once customers have accepted it during that sprint review, after that point, it becomes an increment. So until it has gone through the review, that is when the team members demo it and all of that, and customers inspect it. Remember the pillars of Scrum: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. It really comes into play during the sprint review. That's why the sprint review is very important from the product standpoint, because it's that only opportunity where the customers are able to see what you've done for the past 2 weeks and provide feedback if actually it's what they ask from you. So once they have reviewed it and they confirm it to, okay, this is great, this is exactly what we wanted, at that point it becomes an increment. It's no longer a potential because it's been accepted. That's just what it is.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
So in terms of the work that the development team is doing towards the sprint, going into the sprint review, is it the job of the product owner to green light that before it goes into the review?
Exactly. So technically, there are 2 phases of acceptance, because the product owner wants to also be very careful, because you don't want to get in front of your stakeholders thinking that, or just going by the word of the developers that, okay, this is great, we've done the work and it's correct. And then you just be like, okay, and then you bring it in front of your stakeholders, and in the process of demoing it, it's not working, it's not doing what it said it would do. That will not be good for your credibility as a team, and especially as a product owner. So after they complete the stories and whatever they're working on, they move it to accept, the accept column on their sprint board, or you want to call it task board, whatever. The product owner has to go review it and then accept it before it goes to sprint review, before they conduct their sprint review event. So this typically happens. So anytime a developer complete a user story and he has gone through the QA and everything like that, and they think it's great, they push it to, there's a column that's called accept. So they continue to put it in there, and then the PO is expected to go and pick them up and review them and then accept them. So the PO is reviewing them against the definition of done and against the acceptance criteria. So once the PO reviews and think, okay, it's good, okay, the PO confirms. So that's, I would say that's pre-acceptance. That's what I can call it. And then now when they meet for their sprint review, which is this last but one event in the sprint, the PO will confidently, be sitting there and telling all this nice stuff to their stakeholders that, yes, this is what the team has accomplished. And then now the team will be expected to show the stakeholders. Demo only means show. So you show them, and it's not a presentation or anything like that. You're not showing code. You're showing real working functionality. Let's assume that you were working on the software to make this phone work. You will not be showing the code in your system. No, you'll be showing them what you've done to this phone to make for example, the selfie functionality work. You show them that, okay, right now you can take selfie, you can change the colors, you can do black and white background and all of that. That's what you're showing. You're not doing no PowerPoint presentation and slides and all of that. It's a very informal meeting for team members to just show what they've accomplished and to show that, okay, it's working. Now, when they show it and stakeholders are expected to, inspect it, that's when the inspection comes in, to inspect it and then provide feedback. So they're providing feedback must not only be negative, they can provide feedback by confirming that, oh, wow, this is good. People have done a great job. Or they can provide feedback and said, no, I asked only for a selfie that would do black and white. I didn't ask for a selfie that would do color. And then because the team is expected to take that feedback and adapt in the next sprint, to really adjust to give the customer what they want. So let's assume that the selfie functionality on this phone, as an example we're using, the team thought they did a great job. At that point, it's still a potential increment. Even when the PO has pre-accepted it, it's still a potential increment. Until the customers, then let's assume that now they are in the review and the customer's like, nope, we want it only black and white. We don't want no color selfie. It means that it's not an increment yet because it's been rejected. So they will now, and if it still remain high priority, they would plan to bring it into the upcoming sprints work to fix that. And then let's say the next sprint now, let's assume that we are currently in sprint 1. We are doing review for sprint 1. Now we are moving to sprint 2 and they're expected to correct that. At the end of sprint 2, they'll be doing sprint 2 review. They will still demo that. And then if it's now showing only white and black selfie, the customer accepts it, it becomes an increment. That's how it is. All right, Blessing, no, not Blessing, Michelle and Tim, does that clarify that question?
Can I ask one more question, please?
Okay, go ahead, please.
So in regards to an increment, that is, we're looking at it as a bunch of tasks under the sprint backlog. So let's say that most of the tasks are considered done, but there's just one task that is potentially, it's not meeting the expectation of the customer. Does that mean that the whole increment was a potential, or is it just that one task?
Okay, remember, I'm not sure what you're calling tasks. There are user stories and then there are tasks, right? So most of the time we are measuring users, we are really looking from user story standpoint. We are not really looking at the tasks. The tasks are just the activities that you do in order to complete that user story. That's what the task is. So let's assume that you committed to, let's say, 6 user stories. You are only able to, and remember, the way you craft good user stories should be end to end, which means that by the time you're done with crafting that user story and they are done with developing it, it should be a working functionality. It shouldn't only be a design user story. It shouldn't only be a development user story. So that's how it works. So let's assume that out of the 5 user stories, you're able to accomplish 4. And then the last one, you did 99.99%. You will not be demoing that one that you're not done with it yet. You only demo what you have completed, tested, and you think that is done, it meets the definition of done. If you know that there is still one that is not done, even if it's 99.999% complete, you will not show the customers. So the 4 are now what you categorize as the increment. It may be any kind of functionality. It may be doing it may be 4 different functionalities. It may be that it's just one functionality. The 4 user stories is one functionality. It may be that the 5 user stories is 5 different functionalities. You see, so it just depends on what the developers understand as what they are doing. But the point is, it should be valuable, it should be usable, and it should be shippable. So that's what an increment is. So don't worry about what the tasks are. We don't even consider it that way. We look at, okay, is this usable? Is this a real functionality, or is it just a bunch of tasks that doesn't add any value? So if you're looking at it as task or focusing on task, it means that you're tempted to want to be worrying about output instead of outcome. We want to achieve outcome at the end of the sprints. That is value. We are value driven as opposed to output driven. So that's how that works. All right. Now, thank you all so much for following this edition. This was just an excerpt from part of our Scrum Master training classes. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you are looking for a one-on-one mentoring coaching services training, please reach out to us. Check on the top of this video or on the description box to find our direct contact information and reach out to us. We might be able to help you, especially if you're looking to break into the Scrum Master job market. You have certification for a while and you've been struggling because truly it's not easy. You know, that's what we specialize in, helping people accomplish. And if you're thinking of just getting started, you're not sure how to go about it, please reach out to us and we'll be able to help you. And for our new viewers, please do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We always appreciate you and hope to talk to you next time.